Good morning, it's Brian here over at Expert Dojo. We have another phenomenal entrepreneur on. I love doing this really so much because I get to gloat. Yeah, and it feels so beautiful. I get to sit here and say, okay, so we made an investment into a company and it turns out that company is absolutely kick-ass. And I don't mean just kick-ass. I mean their revenue is exploding. Every single thing that Vilas said to me before we started has come true, multiplied by 10. So for any of you out there who are casual listeners, you'll enjoy the podcast. It will be good. For any of you who are entrepreneurs, you will learn how to build a company and do it properly. And for any of you who are investors, then hang on to your spurs because you're going to hear a company that is exploding in current market growth, not all of those wonderful projections that none of us know ever come true. Vilas, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Happy
Wonderful.
New Year.
Happy New Year to you. That's right. We have kicked into 2022. It is a brand new year. We've got amazing things that are going to happen. And I am just so excited by what you're going to do over at DoqFY because, I introed it strong, right? Normally I'll intro a company that we invested in by saying, I really like you. You're great. I'm really pleased we invested. But genuinely, every single thing you told us prior to us investing it's hard for me to even keep up with what you're doing over there. I haven't even told people what you do, but we're talking about growth of almost 100% from November to December, more growth coming on right now. Maybe I should step back and we should talk about DoqFY and let people understand why you have been going through such explosive growth. Because I remember when we first spoke, the very first time we spoke, I was thinking, oh, okay, so there's many of the components of DocuSign. And then I got way beyond that and I thought it is so much better than DocuSign. It is going to capture an entire quarter of the world maybe. And then once that's done, it will then take up all of the document signing that all those people are using for everyone else. So even though I've just explained it, because I like it so much, tell us how DoqFY was born.
Oh, well, that's an interesting journey that we have set out sometime in 2019. Aditya and I, we know each other for a while. We know each other for about 6 years. And when we decided to sort of form something, we initially tried with the government, but then when we actually did what we started doing with DoqFY, we started hearing people say, hey, you're almost like an answer to my prayers. Where have you been all these years? These are some things that we have always wanted, but nobody was there to offer it to us. We realized we were on the right path. So the context is, everybody needs documentation, everybody needs contract execution, everybody needs the legal or compliance that is on top of it. And Aditya, who's the co-founder of the company, actually went through a lot of pains when he wanted to do this contracting that had to happen on a weekend.
And by the way, Vilas, just to add something on here, the layers of complexity you're based in India, but the layers of complexity when you take Commonwealth countries, whether it's India or any of the other multitude of countries out there, is even more difficult, right? Can you explain maybe as to why that is?
Oh, well, the legal compliance is very strong or very archaic in such a way that like Commonwealth countries are countries that have been once ruled by the British. The same laws that they set out to during their colonization period has continued even now. And so every contract that passes through or every contract that is executed needs to have a specific clause that is added to it. It again depends from province to province. Plus, after this is done, you have to pay a certain amount of money to the government for every contract that you execute. And when you have to pay that money, it's not digital. You have to go through a physical, archaic way of going and procuring and paying, collecting a receipt for having paid that money, and then attach it as part of your document.
Oh.
That's very cumbersome. And if you want to do it after 4:30 or 5 in the evening, or on a weekend, or on a holiday, you're done. You can't get it done. So that's where DoqFY comes as an answer to answering all these problems on a platform. Nobody needs to step off their homes or offices and still get these things done. We have found instances where people had to take 2 half days of leave just to complete these processes. which could just get completed in less than 3 minutes when they use DoqFY.
Wow.
And we see the same problem existing across different Commonwealth countries. We are talking to many Commonwealth country enterprises that we speak with, and each of them we have found having the same problem, irrespective of their size, irrespective of their location. So we believe this is a one solution fits all. All of these countries having the same problem could be addressed by a single platform like DoqFY.
And it's a wonderful Trojan horse because it's a problem that was not being solved by the incumbents in this space, by some of the large billion-dollar unicorns that have come into the digital document signing market over the last 5 to 10 years. And by coming in and solving this problem for your customers, it means it's natural for them to use you for all of the other document signing as well. So I loved how you inserted yourself into a particular pain point for the customers and then said, well, now that you trust us, well, you can use us for all of your document signing.
Absolutely.
And then, so talk to us about how you've developed, because I paint this as a beautiful, rosy path where everything is gorgeous and it's perfect and life has been really easy, because that's when I met you. I met you and you were smiling. Everything was great. You said, Brian, I promise you, I'm going to give you a unicorn. But it must have been very difficult prior to that. Can you maybe talk about the earlier parts of the journey, those parts that were slightly darker, where maybe you didn't have quite so many people as cheerleaders who knew that you were going to be 100% successful?
Yeah, like those were times when we actually started talking to customers. Today we are a totally tech environment and we talk only to the tech, the CTO or the legal team that gets involved. But when we started off, we had the tech platform, but we didn't have the underlying connects to the government entities that could help deliver this service seamlessly. So we built a underlying layer where we made this as a operation heavy environment for about 6 months or so. We ran with that operation heavy environment. We went directly to the person that was encountering the pain in these businesses. So when we went and spoke with them, they seemed to like the idea, but for that it meant a lot of heavy lifting had to be done manually at our offices initially. From February 2019 to about August of 2019, we went through a internal struggle to make sure that we could fit the pieces together and we could deliver that service offline. But once COVID hit, by then we were ready with the digital environment.
Beautiful.
Totally.
Beautiful.
So
the world conspired to being the greatest cheerleaders for DoqFY, right? Because it's so beautiful, because nobody had a choice. It always made sense before, but one of the biggest challenges in early stage startup, building that startup, is changing behaviors, even if the behaviors are idiotic. Still changing them is so incredibly hard. But COVID changed all of that. Suddenly the government had to adopt it, right? Because for them, they were losing huge amounts of revenue. And then afterwards, I'm sure they realized how phenomenal it was. But at the time, it became a necessity, I imagine.
Very, very true. And although ever since year 2000, the laws within the country allowed for digitizing this environment, nobody set out to do it. People were hesitant to execute contracts digitally. Unlike in the West and the more mature markets, where executing contracts digitally, electronically is a norm, for us and many of the Commonwealth countries, this is not the norm. This is something that was enforced upon them by COVID, and they wanted something that could answer this problem to them despite the COVID situation. So customers we had spoken to prior to COVID surprisingly called us during COVID times and said, hey, you remember you spoke to us about this? Can you come and let's do a demo? Let's get all the people together. So typically in an enterprise sales cycle, what would take a year or so before they could approve and bring you as part of their mechanism or their network, suddenly due to COVID, that crunched to about 2.5 to 3 months, because they sort of put us on the expressway for everything. Their legal compliances, their their due diligence on the company, all of this became super fast because they needed something like this. It was a pain that we could solve. They were looking at something that could address some of those most critical scenarios that they're encountering. And at the same time, they realized that this is something that could answer all of it so that they don't lose business. Because for them, every non-execution of a contract means loss of revenue to them. So this is just a rudimentary or an essential piece of it. It's mandated by law. And without that, they can't do their other parts of the work.
Wonderful. And then how entrenched, Vilas, at that time were the DocuSigns and the large digital signing incumbents? I know you've mentioned that the behaviors of Indians in general was very much about seeing someone face to face, shaking somebody's hand, making sure that they were sitting in front of them eye to eye as they signed those contracts. And that's all changed very, very recently. But is there a large digital signing component or industry in India and in the Commonwealth countries today?
Yes. Especially India is leading in that space. We use something like a social security environment to execute contracts so that there is an entry. You cannot say I didn't sign it if it is signed using the social security environment right in India. And the other countries that are around us, our neighbors, the SAARC countries, primarily are trying to emulate what we have in India. So it's one of the largest digital signing environment that India has created. And now every other country that is around us has started adapting it and trying to see how they can implement something like this. So in that sense, we realized that, yes, DocuSign was being used, but with only contracts that were executed cross-border or with some of the when some of the legal firms were using it, not so much these enterprise guys where everything used to happen manually. They used to move paper from one point to another, get it executed and bring it back, scan and upload, store it in their repository. Now, all of that without having them to go through this entire journey is done in a flash. In a few seconds, the document is ready for execution. And in a few minutes, the documents are executed, stored safely in their repository, and can be retrieved on demand. Earlier, if they have to retrieve it, they have to go through a cycle of hoops before they can get access to that document. Now they have that latest document fully available with them, negotiated if they have to on the platform, then executed, stored, retrieved on demand, and will also manage and control their milestones. Somebody could actually go back and say, hey, these are the milestones of my contract. Are they met or not met? So those kind of environments are also possible with DoqFY.
Wonderful. And normally in the podcast, we'll follow the hero's journey, right? We'll follow the part of, what were the difficult things you went through, and then you got through the other side and you get bigger and stronger, and what revenue do you have and what projections are you going to? But I just can't wait, right? I just want to go straight to the end of the book and read the last page, because one of my favorite business podcasts, I think I mentioned to you before, is called Business Wars, right? And it's a wonderful podcast for anybody who hasn't listened to it. And it's how the epic giants fight against each other. The innovator comes into the space. The epic giant is there, whether it's Netflix against Blockbuster, whether it's Adidas against Nike, whether it's Coca-Cola against Pepsi. So for me, I see DoqFY as being a company that can become the dominant company, not just in all of India, but in all of the Commonwealth countries for digital signing. I see you becoming the DD in your space when Uber truly believed that they could dominate in that part of the world. Can you talk us a little bit about what that journey looks like? Am I being too optimistic with this, or is this how you see yourselves as well?
Oh, that's very real. We have found that to be very real, and Dojo has sort of contributed greatly to that journey of our vision as well. We exactly see what you're seeing. It could sort of be the de facto partner for all these enterprises and all the small and medium businesses that need something like this, and we could sort of have an environment. DoqFY will be an environment without which businesses can't survive, because they need this as base of their entire documentation process. So where we see, like if you look at it, January of this year, we were doing about $6,000-7,000. Today we are doing $80,000 a month.
Yeah.
So that journey has been phenomenal, because one.
And by the way, just for those people who are not looking at this on YouTube, I've got 10 fingers up. That is 1,000% growth. 1,000% growth is sitting there at 50, 60% per month on month growth. companies that are doing that, that stay on that trajectory, are on a 100% will not miss missile strike for unicorn land. Like that's where you're going to. It's phenomenal growth. And as an investor, look, I don't promote anything. I'm an investor. We are investors. That's what we do. But I speak to my excitement when I have companies through that I feel have got such an amazing timing is perfect. The product is perfect. The founding team is perfect. The implementation, the customer journey is off the charts. It's all there. This is like the perfect boy or girl band that have come out, which 15, this is a good analogy actually, which 15 and 16-year-old girls and boys are screaming every time you go out to concert to sing, because this is your perfect time. Look, for goodness sake, we haven't just arrived in the digital age. The digital age has inserted itself upon us. It is here. Anybody who is not signing and doing everything digitally, contracts and everything else, within the next 3 to 5 years is on a different planet. And the wonderful thing, in many of the countries outside the United States, the victors haven't won the war yet. Really, the wars haven't even been fought. So whatever company is ready for market, building fast, showing a great customer journey, giving great customer satisfaction to the companies that are actually signing up with them, those companies only require one thing to hit unicorn status, and that's money. That's just investment. That's it. Nothing else. Again, am I being over optimistic here?
No, you're absolutely bang on. Like this is the same excitement we share internally, and when we talk to the dojo team, it's been fantastic. Like it's phenomenal the way we have looked at these things. We look at ourselves in the mirror and say, wow, these are some things that we have achieved over time.
I like that.
In a very short duration.
By the way, it's been many years since I've done that. So I so I admire the fact that you can do that. I love that. Of course, you're growing at a crazy rate. And by the way, for this growth, how much money had you raised? Obviously, we put money into you. We would have put more into you if you'd let us to. We are going to put more into you in the future. All of those are happening. But how much have you raised so far to get you to the growth?
About 270K.
It's a joke. Like people in Silicon Valley will be thinking, I think he just missed a decimal point off that. I think he meant it's not possible to grow from pretty much zero to almost $100,000 a month with $270,000. Like $270,000 is one person's salary in Silicon Valley. And not only has it lasted you the entire year, but you've used it for the growth of your company. Can you talk a little bit about how did you build to the level that you've built to with such a tiny amount of money?
Oh, wow. We had an internal team that sort of worked long hours to just make sure that things are done. And Palas, who's our CIO, actually sat together and architected this whole thing in such a way, because it could also be used in rural India, rural places where the connects are slower, where environment or infrastructure is not available to that level of efficiency that we would need in a large enterprise system. So that was our idea. We said we will build something that could fit into the lowest common denominator in a particular environment. And that set us working in a way where we had fantastic support in the infrastructure. Like AWS was a boon. We had credits which we could leverage, and we could put the system together. And a 6-member team internally actually put together all these things in a span of 4 months.
Wow.
We could sort of put these things, start rolling, go after the customers, like customers that we had reached out in the past. LinkedIn has been a great input into our sales mechanism, because most of the customers that we reached out to on LinkedIn, and it worked like a song for us during the COVID. And it still continues to give us good results. But where I'm coming from is the way we have gone through this journey of building the tech, building something initially that could sort of cater to the purchase area or the administration team, which had the biggest problems. We had the foot in the door. And with that, once the tech got fully ready about 4 or 5 months, then it now changed the whole dynamics of the equation. The the people at the ground were rooting for us, saying, hey, you guys have solved a big part of my problem. And now the tech guys had nothing else to say but to say, hey, let's bring you on quickly. And our integration is just a week. Customers can integrate the entire environment in 1 week and connect it to their internal systems. So it was a song from that angle. Yeah. It was a journey.
Incredible. Please go on.
It was a journey that was initially a struggle, but I think over time we realized all the pain, like the chinks, and we fixed all of it in, like, say, 6 to 7 months. We had our customers rooting for us. There were a lot of customers that said, we'll use one division, one city, and then scaled it across as a pan-India, 17 divisions that started using the platform. So that's the reason we had seen those astronomical growth.
Yeah. And by the way, I call your journey the Wizard of Oz journey, right? Because it sounds great, and the man and the woman is there behind, and they're moving the levers and their buttons. But I truly believe that a highly innovative tech company cannot become you can become a unicorn just with money, right? But you can't become a great unicorn, a great trillion-dollar company, unless you understand the behaviors of your customers. And the only way you can understand the behavior of your customers is to start that highly tech, scalable, innovative company as being a highly human, understanding tech platform. You have to go through that stage at the beginning to build the customer journey and really listen to what they're telling you that they really need. It is so painful. There's no sleep. There's 18, 20-hour days. There's confusion. There's frustration. There's, I can't believe they want this. We just build that. But when you do it and you build it, you come out the other side with a machine. And a machine that speaks directly to what customers are looking for. And again, what's incredible to me is that you did all of this with a smidgen over $200,000. And from November to December, your revenue went from how much to how much?
About, let's say, October, November, December, we've 40, like both October and November was $40,000. And suddenly in December, we were close to $80,000.
Yeah, I already knew the answer, but I just wanted to hear Villa say it one more time because I like it as an investor in the company. And so how did you do that? First of all, how much did you spend on marketing? If you only raised 200 grand, over 200 grand, 250 grand. And then so if you only raised that, how much did you spend on marketing through the year? And how did you get the customers that you got?
We spent about $300 a month as marketing expense, because that's what we could set aside after taking care of all the tech expenses and everything else.
Ridiculous.
But we had like 3 salespeople, including me, were the primary drivers of the customer engagement, which sort of, we were at one point in time, each of us were doing close to about 6 to 7 demos in a single day. So, and each of us running it independently. We saw that then we sort of automated this whole process as well, where we could allow them to download demos and watch it for themselves, and use our time to answer questions that they may have. So it's like we have been very frugal in our spend. We've sort of when we set out to do what we set out, we said we will set ourselves at we'll build a unicorn. That's one idea, to say, hey, this is something that can answer a lot of problems. So we don't necessarily need to sort of make all the money right now. We will we'll sort of put it into the team. We'll put it into tech to make sure that that's what will make the company valuable. And in a way, like the biggest marketing spend that we had was the LinkedIn spend that we used to spend on reaching out to customers. We had constant attempts to reach out. We used to do about 50 reach outs in a single day, every single day for 4 months. And that gave us a lot of returns. We sort of never could believe that this is something that could work.
And so $300. Wow. It's just fantastic. But again, I really love the transition that you went through. It's such a pure, important transition. Many companies in the US have this tremendous problem that they raise so much money so quickly that they get false positives everywhere. They advertise not $300 a month, they advertise $30,000 a month or $300,000 a month. And then they'll bring in revenue and revenue and revenue and revenue. But because they're spending so much, because the hype is so high, even the customers get false positives and negatives because they think that the service should be how the service is because they're already such a huge company. By doing it your way, it is slightly slower at the beginning, although in your case it hasn't been slower, bizarrely. But you get to grow so much faster afterwards. You build your body up to be a world-class athlete rather than just going to the first race meet that you can find and starting running there. That's what's so great here. So now we get to the future. Now we get to the important part. We have just hit, this podcast will come out sometime in January or February, but we are literally on the first Monday of January 2022. The world as you know it is about to explode. You are about to create incredible things. Your round already closed. We've had to add extra on top of the round to see if we can get some of our US investors in on. This is most certainly not a podcast where I'm saying to people, you should take a flyer and invest in this company and you might do okay. This is a podcast where I'm saying to investors, I may be able to get you into this round because it already got oversubscribed and we asked Philas if he could just add a little bit on top of it. But can you speak? You already raised the $1 million that you were looking for. I know I asked you if you can add an extra 500,000 on top of that, which I believe that you're going to do. But can you speak to the money that you're going to raise, which will all be done in the next week or two? And then as we get that out to the market, how much are you going to spend? What are you going to do with marketing? What's going to happen in 2022?
Okay. So in the next 12 months, we'll hit 250K a month. MRR 250K is the way we are going. About $3 million in revenue is where we are headed to in the next 12 months. Having said that, we had that $1 million fundraise that we planned, and we sort of got oversubscribed. We added the 500K. Additionally, we have got a couple more that have that are interested in adding a couple of $100 there, couple of $100,000. So we are sort of getting closer to the 1.5 mil number that we looked at.
Yeah, and there's no way we're going to let you go beyond that. But
Yes.
Just save me a couple of 100,000. I have some of our investors. I definitely want to get in on that.
Cool, will do, Brian. And I know Dojo has been a great partner. We sort of loved the interactions, the sessions. It actually helped us pitch better to our investors, and the investors loved the story that's coming out of after the Dojo sessions. And we believe this is where we are headed. In the next 2 weeks, we should be able to wrap this up and move forward towards spending on the tech. We intend to spend about 30% of this on technology and 40% on the growth in terms of market sales and marketing is
Nice.
what we intend to spend. The 20% is towards the geographical expansion, because what we intend to do is set up close partnerships with partners in the SAARC countries or the Commonwealth countries, where we could do pilots and POCs, and then expand eventually, keeping around 10% back for contingency. But largely the 90% is going towards technology, sales and marketing, and geographical expansion.
Okay. And this isn't even the interesting round. This round is just to do what needs to be done to drive the revenue to where you're going to go to. For me, the interesting round happens in Q4 2022. That's when we raise the decent money. So let's talk about what we're going to raise then and what that is going to do to the company. I just want to see how long this is going to take, although I kind of know already. But I still want to talk about it again so I can feel better about myself.
So the next round, the CDC round, we want to do it at $10 million is what we intend to raise as a fund towards expanding across these places. We are sure to see explosive growth wherever we go, because we seem to have touched a sort of very close pulse for customers, where something that's troubling them can be addressed by what we are doing. And we have understood, we have researched so much on these problem areas and try to simulate and solve these problems internally and on this platform, that when we go to a customer and talk to them, they seem to say, hey, this is exactly the way I have looked at it, or I have envisaged this problem. You seem to have answered my problems there. So we believe in the next, like say, the next 12 months, we'll hit at least a $3 million as revenue. It can go higher. We are very conservative in these numbers because we've seen whatever business plan we put out, we have achieved those numbers. Whatever we put out, we are seeing that we are very, very close to those numbers, even in reality. So we know that the $3 million is there for the taking. We will take that number very, very quickly. And then currently we are on a 1 million ARR. We will do a 3 million ARR, which is at least a 3 million ARR is where we are at. We have a single, like say the top 15 customers of ours can give us a potential of about $7 million as annual revenue. So that's where we have said we will expand to that number. So that's the number that we are aiming for. But from a conservative level, we'll say we will at least hit a $3 million revenue in the next 12 months. And that would lead us to a 10 million fundraise that we intend to do.
And the 10 million fundraise for me, I've had conversations internally on this with people, and you never know because things always change and the fundraising is so frantic right now. There's so much money available for companies that are really scaling fast, which you fit right in the middle of. But I see, assuming that we raise that $10 million, let's say the valuation is north of $50 million, wherever that finishes, whether it's 50 or 60 or 70 or 80. And I think a lot of that will depend on the trajectory of the growth and where it's going to. My feeling, or at least our discussions inside, were not that you won't have another raise in the future, but that you won't need another raise in the future, right?
Yes, absolutely agree with you. We may not need to raise the money because we need the money kind of scenario. We will sort of raise the money to sort of expand exponentially and have investors that would sort of win by investing with us. So we have seen that happening. Our last investor has seen a 4x growth on his investment. Our earlier investor, he has seen a 4x growth in less than a year and a half. So we see that this could sort of go multifold, considering the way we have set ourselves the targets, the stringent numbers that we are trying to achieve, and the customer interest and the customer liking for us has actually aided this whole growth plan. And we are sure, we are very, very confident that we will hit that number come what may.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely huge. I do, there's so many areas that are so unique about what you've built. And I believe you would have done what you were going to do anyway, with or without COVID, because the timing was just right for it. COVID was just a really great accelerant. So companies could break away from the idiotic principle that they could keep on doing everything by sending people from one place to another place to get them to sign papers. It just made no sense whatsoever. Actually, I see in many ways, I see DoqFY in a very similar way to Zoom. I think you've solved similar problems. Zoom itself was a necessity long before COVID. COVID just made it a necessary thing for us to do, to realize that actually it saved us a ton of time. But there's no question in the world, I have a minimum of 30% extra time to do more work, probably, right? But I have 30% more time to 60% more time because of Zoom. And people are going to look at that in exactly the same way with regards to how they manage their documentation, all documentation across the board. You can save between 10 and 20% of time within organizations for how they manage the documents that they have online. The place that you go to is huge. So, but the point I'm going to make here is, like, first thing that's highly unusual for you was your ability to be able to get so much growth with so little money being able to be spent. The second thing, which is highly unusual, is for the enterprise buying cycle to be so much shorter than it should be, especially going for your product. But the third area is that highly, 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 highly unusual, the most unusual of all the most unusuals, is that you will be a profit-making company.
Yes,
and,
we are
and
already.
normal people outside this insane world that we live in do not understand the magnitude of what I'm saying here. Uber has never ever made money. Not only have they never made money, none of us know how they will ever make money. And it's not just Uber, it is the vast majority of the unicorns as they grow have no ability to be able to make money. They are merely hype on top of dreams, on top of a lot of venture capital money. In this discussion that you're listening to right here, you are talking to the founder of a company that has the ability to make a ton of EBITDA, profit, money, cash, whatever you want to call that bottom line that comes into a company that keeps it sustainable and keeps that stock price rising. That is what this company have the ability to do. I want to finish the podcast on this and also let people have all of your details so they can connect you with again. But I want them to understand the magnitude of exactly what kind of revenue can be generated here and what type of profits can be brought in by the company going forward.
We are positive unit dynamics. Our unit dynamics are very, very clear. We make money every transaction. So we say there are instances where we make close to about 70% of our money per transaction. So that's a big thing for us.
Thank you. It's like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Ching, 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 ching. Because you have a great product and you have great unit dynamics for the customers. They get a great deal on it. And you have a great one for your shareholders. So we're not in the position that all other unicorns are in as soon as a recession comes in, which is that they desperately go searching for money. You are in a better position. If a recession comes in, it's even more of a reason to be doing digital documents and digital signing because it will drive more efficiencies for that company itself. And you'll make profit and be able to go through. And that means that you can go on a shopping spree the moment that there are challenges. So you are an awesome investment, in my opinion, for Expert Dojo in the good times, and you are an even more awesome investment in the bad times.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, even with that money that the customer pays us, they're still saving more than 50% of their costs. Like I'm 50% lesser than their cost already, but still I have a positive unit dynamics because the way we have structured this, the way the technology is aiding this whole growth is something that was never imagined some time ago for these customers. So now, they don't even question us when we put a number on the table, and that's in a way positive for us. And we will make it happen for the customers because they have seen whatever we committed to them, we have delivered on that. So then that only means that they expand into other locations, other divisions that start using the platform. So
it begins. And your email address so everybody can contact you.
I'm reachable at Vilas, VILAAS at DoqFY.in, DoqFY.in.
Perfect. And everybody can also always contact me at brian@expertdojo.com, and I will happily loop Vilas in. I am hoping that by the time we get this out, that there will actually be some money still left in the round. Either way, you should be connecting with Vilas. This, in my book, is a unicorn for the future. I am putting a big bookmark on it, and I'll always remember the first time that Vilas and I spoke, and I was on the phone, and I couldn't get around my head. I was like, how can anyone compete with the large incumbents in the United States in the document signing space? And by the time we moved a month forward in our journey, I reached the conclusion that I'm at today, which is that I feel sorry for the incumbents in the United States if they even want to dream of competing in the Commonwealth countries with a company like DoqFY. So I will sign off at that. I am so pleased to have known you. A monster. You've given me a happy new year because we've made an investment in you. And for everybody else out there, you just heard a unicorn in the making.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for the investment too. That's great.